The Sterile Millionaire. As a joke, he proposed to a cleaner to become the mother of his children. Imagine a life where you've achieved everything money can buy, but lost the one thing that truly mattered, the chance to leave your legacy. Michael Alvarez was that man, a brilliant entrepreneur whose business empire grew at the same rate his personal life fell apart, culminating in a devastating infertility diagnosis and a bitter divorce that cost him half his fortune. When his best friend, during a moment of relaxation fueled by rare whiskey, suggested he propose to the office cleaner to become the mother of his children, no one could have predicted that this seemingly absurd joke would trigger a series of events that not only challenged everything Michael believed about family, happiness, and destiny, but also revealed a shocking conspiracy orchestrated by the last person he'd suspect. Michael was born in a big city to a relatively well-off family. From childhood, he stood out for his ambition and entrepreneurial vision. In school, he demonstrated natural leadership qualities, always organizing events and initiatives among his classmates. At university studying economics, he didn't hesitate to start from the bottom, working as a delivery guy to pay his expenses. He was soon promoted to administrative assistant, impressing his superiors with his dedication and intelligence. Still in college, he launched his first venture, a small, rare car parts business with a trusted friend. Despite initial enthusiasm, the company went belly up after a year, a valuable lesson Michael would never forget. This experience, though painful, was fundamental to his growth as a businessman. By 30, he had already gained considerable experience in the business world, testing different ideas and learning from each failure. At 33, his project related to logistics and importing from China finally took off, becoming a smashing success. Michael, with his strategic vision, quickly identified opportunities for expansion, opening branches in different cities and diversifying his investments. In just a few years, he built an empire and became a millionaire, respected in business circles for his determination and rock-solid ethics. Michael met Natalie back in school days, when both dreamed of brilliant futures. She, with her stunning beauty and sharp intelligence, decided to study law, while he pursued economics. They were the perfect couple in everyone's eyes, young, good-looking, and ambitious. They tied the knot right after university graduation, in an elegant ceremony that reflected their hopes for a grand future together. At first, the relationship was harmonious. They shared plans, supported each other, and seemed to be heading in the same direction. However, as Michael's business thrived, Natalie changed. She gradually abandoned her own professional dreams to dedicate herself to a life of luxury and showing off. Shopping sprees, international trips, and ridiculously expensive jewelry became her routine. The topic of children became a constant source of friction. Whenever Michael brought up his desire to start a family, Natalie would come up with new excuses. First, that they needed to stabilize their financial situation. Then, that she needed to focus on her career. Later, that she wasn't ready for the physical changes of pregnancy. Years passed, and the love that once united them cooled like ice under the scorching sun of mutual frustrations. As Michael approached 40, still burning with desire to have children, he received devastating medical news: extremely low fertility, close to zero. The news was a brutal blow, especially because he felt he had wasted precious years with Natalie's constant postponements. She, meanwhile, seemed secretly relieved, but feigned appropriate disappointment in front of friends and family. Discussions about alternatives like adoption or in vitro fertilization only intensified their conflicts. Arguments became frequent, revealing the true nature of a relationship beyond saving. After a particularly explosive fight, they decided to split up. The divorce process was bitter and complicated, with Natalie demanding and getting half of Michael's assets despite never having significantly contributed to building that wealth. After the divorce, Michael threw himself into work, trying to fill the void in his personal life. The mansion that once seemed small for two people now echoed with his loneliness. The infertility diagnosis hung over him like a life sentence, stealing away his hope of someday having the family he'd always dreamed of. On a particularly rough Friday, his friend Peter showed up at the office with a bottle of rare whiskey. After a few drinks, the conversation drifted into more personal territory. Between nervous laughter and snarky comments about relationships, Peter tossed out an absurd idea. "Why don't you propose to the office cleaner to become the mother of your children? You're loaded, you can support her well, and she seems like a good person." The suggestion was met with incredulous laughter, but in the days that followed, Michael began to look at Anne differently. She was young, maybe in her 30s, modest in her ways, and surprisingly beautiful when she smiled. She worked for the outsourced cleaning company, always discreet and efficient. One day, he purposely stayed at the office while she did her work and struck up a casual conversation. He discovered that Anne lived in a small rented room in a distant neighborhood, using public transportation to travel long distances daily. With a degree in culinary arts, she dreamed of opening her own bakery, but financial difficulties kept her stuck in cleaning work. There was something about Anne's humility and quiet determination that touched Michael deeply. After days mulling over Peter's ridiculous idea and several glasses of whiskey to work up his courage, Michael approached Anne at the end of her shift. With awkward words and a racing heart, he proposed that she become the mother of his children, explaining his financial situation and infertility diagnosis. He braced himself to be slapped, reported, or at the very least, insulted. To his complete surprise, Anne showed no offense. Her face turned deep red, but her eyes revealed a curious mixture of emotions. After a long silence, she simply responded that if he really needed this, she wouldn't object. The answer left Michael speechless. What began as an absurd proposal transformed into an elegant dinner at a discreet restaurant. Michael, feeling deeply guilty about his foolish approach, planned to use the occasion to gracefully back out of the proposal, perhaps offering financial help for Anne to achieve her bakery dream as compensation for the embarrassment. During dinner, however, Anne surprised him with her intelligence and insight. Without her simple work clothes and with her hair down, she seemed like a completely different person, confident and articulate. In a moment of vulnerability, she confessed she had admired him for some time, silently observing his kindness toward employees and his work ethic. She also revealed she had always dreamed of being a mother, but previous relationships had ended in disappointment. Michael was deeply confused. He knew he was sterile, making it impossible to fulfill Anne's maternal dream. Still, he continued pretending to be serious about the original proposal, unable to confess the truth and end the connection he was beginning to feel with her. Something that night changed between them, creating a bond neither fully understood. Gradually, without grand declarations or definitions, they began a relationship. They started meeting outside the workplace, coffee after work, a Sunday walk in the park, text messages during the day. A month passed, and Anne began spending more time at Michael's house. She kept her job and independence, but shared increasingly intimate moments with him. Michael felt progressively more attracted to Anne, not just physically, but for her authenticity and practical view of life. She wasn't easily impressed by luxury, valuing simple gestures and sincere conversations. However, the weight of his secret constantly tormented him. How would Anne react when discovering he could never give her the children she wanted? The anxiety of this inevitable revelation consumed him daily. 3 months after the beginning of this unconventional arrangement, Anne asked to speak with Michael privately. Her expression was a mixture of nervousness and contained emotion. To Michael's absolute shock, she announced she was 3 months pregnant, and not with just one child, but with triplets. When Anne broke the news, it hit Michael like a bolt from the blue. Stunned, he sat down heavily, unable to process what he was hearing. All the doctors, all the tests, all the expert opinions had confirmed his near-absolute infertility. How could Anne be pregnant, let alone with triplets? His mind raced through various possibilities, none of them pleasant. And noticing his shock, rushed to assure him she hadn't been with anyone else since they started their relationship. Sincere tears streamed down her face as she swore absolute fidelity. Something in the conviction of her words and the transparency of her emotion made Michael question his initial suspicions. A new theory began forming in his mind. What if the medical tests had been deliberately falsified? What if Natalie, who always showed disinterest in having children, had somehow influenced the results? The idea seemed absurd, even conspiratorial, but it would explain the inexplicable miracle now presenting itself before him. As Anne's pregnancy progressed, her belly expanding to accommodate 3 lives, an unwelcome figure returned to Michael's life. Natalie, impeccably dressed and perfumed as always, appeared in his office without warning. Rumors about the miraculous pregnancy had reached her ears, and her expression betrayed a disturbance she couldn't completely disguise. The conversation began with fake cordiality, but soon Natalie revealed her true purpose. She cast doubt on Anne's fidelity, suggesting she was deceiving Michael to secure a comfortable life for herself and children that probably weren't even his. She offered to help investigate the truth, hinting that perhaps there could be a reconsideration of their relationship. Michael observed his ex-wife with renewed clarity. He now saw the manipulation in every studied gesture, the fakeness in every expression of concern. With unwavering firmness, he asked Natalie to leave his office and his life. The rejection ignited a barely contained fury in her eyes, and she left with veiled threats that the truth always comes out. In the 37th week of pregnancy, Anne went into labor. Michael, who had attended every prenatal appointment and ultrasound, with growing fascination, rushed to the hospital with his heart racing from excitement and anxiety. After hours of labor, 3 healthy boys came into the world, each weighing just over 4 pounds. Holding those tiny lives in his arms, Michael experienced an emotion he never imagined possible. The physical resemblance was undeniable. The shape of the eyes, the curve of the chin, small details that seemed to reflect his own face. Still, to silence any remaining doubt, he secretly decided to conduct a DNA test. The results arrived 2 weeks later. 99.999% confirmation that he was the biological father of the triplets. The scientific evidence was irrefutable. The previous infertility diagnoses had undoubtedly been false or manipulated. Discreet investigations revealed connections between Natalie and one of the doctors who had performed his tests, suggesting she had orchestrated the false diagnosis to justify her refusal to have children, probably fearing pregnancy would affect her physical appearance and lifestyle. With the babies still newborns, Michael asked Anne to marry him. It wasn't a decision based on obligation or convenience, but on the genuine love that had blossomed between them. The ceremony was modest compared to his first wedding, held in the garden of their home with only close friends and family. Anne wore a simple but elegant dress, and the triplets participated in the arms of nannies specially hired for the occasion. The boys were given names meaningful to the couple: Nicholas, in honor of the paternal grandfather, Michael Jr. in honor of his father, and Eric, the name of Anne's maternal grandfather. They created a special room for the babies, decorated with themes of adventure and discovery, reflecting Michael's hopes to encourage curiosity and courage in his sons. Anne adapted surprisingly well to multiple motherhood, showing admirable patience and organization. Michael cut back on his workload to be more present, learning to change diapers and give bottles with fatherly enthusiasm. When the babies turned 6 months old, Michael helped Anne achieve her professional dream by investing in an artisanal bakery called Happy Dough. The business quickly gained a reputation for unique flavors and a welcoming atmosphere. Natalie made several blackmail attempts, threatening to expose supposed business manipulations by Michael if she didn't receive money. He stood firm, however, knowing there was nothing to hide. Eventually, she disappeared from their lives, moving to another country with a wealthy new husband. For the triplets' first birthday, they organized a special celebration. The house filled with childish laughter, vibrant colors, and the delicious aroma of treats specially prepared by Anne. Peter, the friend who had made the original joke that changed their lives, raised an emotional toast to how the craziest ideas sometimes lead to the greatest happiness. As the years passed, Michael discovered new reasons to value Anne. Besides being a loving wife and dedicated mother, she demonstrated practical wisdom that frequently surprised everyone. With her straightforward reasoning and unique perspective, she offered valuable insights into Michael's business, helping him make important decisions at critical moments. The boys grew up as close brothers, but with distinct personalities. Nicholas proved analytical and reflective, often lost in books and experiments. Michael Jr. inherited his father's entrepreneurial spirit, always creating small businesses in the neighborhood. Eric revealed impressive artistic talent, transforming his mother's bakery into a cultural space with his exhibitions. The story of Michael and Anne became legendary among their friends, a reminder of how fate works in unexpected ways. A comment made in jest, an absurd proposal, an unlikely encounter, elements that combined resulted in a life of genuine happiness. Their story demonstrates that even in the most unlikely situations, true happiness can flourish when people are authentic and embrace decisions that change the course of their lives, however unusual they may seem at the time.